When I sat down to write my review for Flight of the Eisenstein, I found that I really didn't want to write anything. I think because this book feels, in many ways, like a fever dream. I really enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. It was a great book. In fact, I would rate it almost as high as Horus Rising. But it meanders. It retells a story from a different perspective. It feels hard to grasp what this book is trying to do, where it fits in, the full story it's trying to tell. And so I've decided, if you'll permit me, please, to just talk. I haven't written anything down. I haven't gathered my thoughts. I finished Flight of the Eisenstein last night. I have my top Spotify songs playing in my ears, and I want to talk about Garro. Nathaniel Garro is a really cool character. Now, is he as cool as Loken? I don't know if I'd go that far. But he is a cool guy. Oh, also, an aside. Of course, since I haven't written this down, I haven't figured out exactly how this is going to flow. But you're probably going to see me painting Saul Tarvitz. I decided that I wanted to paint a miniature, a character miniature when possible, with each book that I read. I love miniature painting. I started doing it about 3 weeks ago, and it's about my favorite thing in the whole wide world right now. I don't know if it'll stay that way forever, but it's a craft that I really enjoy, and that mirrors a lot of other crafts that I've done in my life, like crochet or paint by numbers. And I don't know, I thought it'd be fun to combine two of my loves, to tell a story through a miniature while talking about a story that I really loved. So, yeah, enjoy me painting Saul Tarvitz. I'll kind of be in the corner or over somewhere. I haven't quite decided how to edit this. If you can't tell, I'm kind of winging it, which, to get back to Garro, is kind of a theme of this book. So where do I begin with Garro? Like I said, I don't like him as much as I like Loken, but that doesn't mean that I dislike him. In fact, I do really enjoy Garro as a character, but he is not on the same level as Loken, and I think that has a lot to do with Loken being the original point of view character that introduced me to this series, and not anything really to do with who they are as people, more the place they live in my brain. I will tell you, I did not expect Garro to become religious. But given the journey he goes through, it makes complete sense. Although, I'll say the same thing that I did in, I believe, my False Gods review, that seeing someone find comfort in religion is really not something I can easily relate to, because I grew up in a very religious environment, and it was very traumatizing for me in a lot of ways. It created a big cycle of shame that I still live with. And it's something that I fight. But I also understand that lots of people find comfort in religion. My parents are those people. I've known many of those people just in my life. So, you know, I can understand it. I studied religion. I get why people do it, for lack of a better word. In this narrative, we see Garro go from a headstrong guy to a man with purpose. This book, I feel like, has quite a few themes that it touches on, or motifs, ideas that it's playing with, that it's in conversation with. One of them is one of my favorite tropes, which is the idea of the good man within a group. I've talked about Bones before, and if you come to my stream, there's a good chance I'll mention it on any given week. I just think Bones is the backbone of network TV, and many things have been based off of it, and it tells a very normal baseline narrative throughout its entire 12-season run. There's a lot of stuff you can talk about there, but I've talked about Seeley Booth, and one of the reasons I'm obsessed with this show is because it is a show about a man in the FBI on one level, but it's also about a guy in the FBI, but the TV show doesn't like the FBI. It's difficult to explain, but the show does not believe the FBI is a good organization, and yet it has a main character who is a part of that organization. It understands that it's a fragile system that is slow and bureaucratic and strange. And I feel like, in many ways, the Imperium is mirrored in this narrative to the FBI in a show like Bones. you couldn't say that it's similar to something like NCIS, because NCIS believes that government agencies is good, right? TV shows believe things, they say things about the stuff in them, and they often say it with their whole chest. NCIS is very, very pro-NCIS, whereas Bones does not like the FBI. There are many shows where one agency may not like another agency, such as the FBI not liking the CIA or the CIA not liking the FBI, but most of the time a TV show enjoys or kind of presents an image of its own agency as being good. So you can easily talk about SWAT. SWAT thinks that SWAT is good, right? FBI, the TV show, thinks the FBI is good. And I've been thinking a lot about whether or not these books think the Imperium is good. And it's really strange because it doesn't seem to take a stance on it. I would think that the Imperium of Man, the largest organization currently happening in this universe, would have, I don't know, some sort of viewpoint on it within the book itself. But it doesn't really. I think largely because it's kind of viewing these legions as agencies within themselves, and they're very flawed and nuanced in their own ways, some more than others. Angron and the World Eaters seem to be largely just angry guys. Lorgar and the Word Bearers are just people who hate fun, things like that. But I don't know how much of that is just my lack of knowledge about them, and how much of that is the universe, the authorial universe, speaking about those factions. I can't figure out if any of these authors feel a specific way about the Imperium of Man. And that's really weird to me. And the reason I bring this up is because Nathaniel Garro is a good man amongst men who might be bad. And that is an idea that is brought up quite a lot in Bones. In Bones, the FBI is bad, but Sealy Booth is good, right? And we think of a parallel here is that the Death Guard is bad, and Garro is good, right? Death Guard bad, Garro good. FBI bad, Booth good. But the thing is, in both instances, we see that there are good men, like Eocton Cruz within the Luna Wolves, or Loken within the Luna Wolves, Saul Tarvitz within the Emperor's Children. These are all good men within these bad organizations. And this brings me to questions of are they viewed as organizations by the author, or are they viewed as families? Because there's a lot to do with the Primarchs, who are kind of like directors. I don't know, maybe my metaphor kind of falls apart the way that I'm viewing this in parallel, but it does seem like there is no opinion given about the Imperium of Man. I just can't get over that. I can't tell if they like it or they don't. It does seem like they have an opinion about the system is not currently working, right? I mean, Horus is rebelling. That seems to be bad. And there's a kind of cheeky reference to that when Garro is talking about, what would we do without war? And the person he's talking to is like, well, seems like you might just invent a new war, right? This part is not really analysis so much as speculation and wild accusations and weird connections between TV shows that I love and this media. A chatter recently told me that they really appreciated that I was media literate. And the thing is, I dig. I take a shovel and I dig. Call me a Kriegsman, I'm digging, okay? I love to overthink a piece of media. It's one of my favorite things in the world. It's what turns my brain at night, And I've thought about the TV show Bones more than I'd like to admit. I could probably just rip out an 8-hour video essay off the cuff right now if I needed to. Would anyone like that? I could do that. We could, anytime, any day of the week, I'll do that for you. You just let me know, okay? You just let me know. It's also currently 6:43 at night, and I'm home alone, essentially, so that's largely why I'm talking like I've just drank 7 cans of Diet Coke. This book makes me excited. It makes me excited because it gets me asking bigger questions about the universe, right? About how does this group of authors feel about certain things in the universe? And there's always the question of Euphrati Keeler. What's going on with Euphrati Keeler, okay? She gets taken away by the Sisters of Silence at the end, and we don't get an answer about whether or not she's a psyker, but she's not dead, so I'm assuming she has not been classified as a psyker, because I feel like they would have shot her on sight. I mean, they are not lenient people, it seems like. There's this question of, somebody spoiled something for me. This is just your reminder. Please don't spoil things for me. You'll just get hidden on YouTube, and then I'll also, you know, block any Twitch username that has the same stuff. You know, I'll just obliterate you from existence, you know, in general when it comes to my channel if you do spoil things. And I understand that there's an urge to correct me, but let me be wrong about some things, especially if they're future things. Someone decided that I needed to know Loken's fate fully, and it was just, I think it was just the callousness with which all they did was comment that. And I was like, all right, dude, you ruined a bit of fun for me. I wanted to find that out on my own. And it made me mauled a little bit, I'm sorry. But I don't know. You won't live in my head rent-free or anything. I'll just go, that sucks. Obliterate. You know, Abelard. Twist his balls. Anyway, I don't know. I like this book a lot. Like I said, it's about a 4.5, 4.8, anywhere in that range for me. It's a good book. A lot of questions. This is really unstructured as a review. I'm sorry. Again, this book felt like a fever dream, right? We're replaying the events of Galaxy in Flames. James Swallow decides to invent the most heart-wrenching character I've ever read about since Rylanor in Her and Fall. Like, excuse me? James Swallow? Could we chill out a little bit? If I could beg you to not rip my heart out of my chest with less than like 6 paragraphs, that would be greatly appreciated, my dude. It was just, I'm gonna be thinking about Her and Fall for days. I explained it to my IRL best friend and sobbed while doing so. I cried while explaining the scene to somebody. Imagine how much I cried reading the dang thing. I mean, if you haven't read the book, read the book, but also Her and Fall, a dreadnought, one of the senior dogs. Dreadnoughts are senior dogs of this universe, by the way. They just make me sad when I look at them in like a way that tugs at your heartstrings. Like, yeah, they've lived a good life, but they're still living it. And like, we had a senior dog who went on kind of past her prime. And I just like, I think it's ingrained in me that when I see an old dog working past their days, you're kind of like, let them rest, buddy. And like, that's how I feel about dreadnoughts. Just let them rest, buddy. I don't know. It's something about Rylanor, something about Her and Fall. Like, it's just, it makes me feel crazy. But anyway, Her and Fall is on the planet of Istvan 3 with Timodur, who is one of the dudes in the Death Guard, and Her and Fall is also in the Death Guard. And they drop the virus bombs, and Her and Fall is telling Timodur, get inside the bunker. And Timodur's like, no, my men have got to get in there. And Her and Fall's like, well, I'm gonna survive, you get in there. But it's too late. And Timodur starts melting away, and he realizes that Her and Fall lied. It's literally just the line, you lied. And then, like, Her and Fall grabs them both, and he, hold on, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find this gut-wrenching moment. It's so awful. Veteran's prerogative, came the reply. We'll go together then, shall we? Her and Fall asked, embracing Timodur's body to him, moving swiftly away from the bunker. It took every last effort from Timodur to nod. Blinded now, he could feel the tissues of his eyes burning and shriveling in his head, the soft meat of his lips and tongue dissolving. Her and Fall's systems were on the verge of shutdown as he stumbled to a safe distance, skidding to a halt. This death, rasped the voter. This death is ours. We choose it. We deny your victory. With a single burning nerve impulse, the mind of the warrior at the heart of the dreadnought uncoupled the governor controls on his compact fusion generator and let it overload. For a moment there was a tiny star on the battered plains outside the Coral City, marking 2 more lives lost within a maelstrom of murder. James Swallow, I'm writing you a personal letter to tell you I didn't like that. You didn't have to do that to me. I'm crying about it again, dude. It's like they said, hey, James, can you invent the saddest thing you've ever thought of? And then, like, put it in that book for us? I don't know why it gets me so much. I wish I could explain it. I think it's so noble and intense, and, like, I'm not usually a war story type of person, but I've been really getting swept up in this whole battle brother thing, and honor, and glory, and battle, and yada, 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 you know, but also in the tragedy and humanness and intensity of battle and Warhammer makes me feel a lot of things, dude. Oh man. Oh. That's just, there's so much. Why'd they have to do that to me? Why'd they have to make dreadnoughts? They look so cool. I'm planning on reading The Ancient Awaits about Rylanor while building a Contemptor Dreadnought, a 30k Contemptor Dreadnought. And no, I'm not buying the special Emperor's Children chest that goes with it because that's robbery. Literal highway robbery. It costs $10 less than the actual model itself. There are many things I will concede on for GW, but this is not one of them. Make it $30 and maybe I'll consider it. Back to Garro. I think I've calmed down a bit. I think Garro is an extremely human Astartes. Someone in my Discord made the critique of James Swallow as writing Astartes as almost too human. But I think Garro and Loken and Tarvitz and many of them have this strange veneer, this strange push of being named characters that inherently makes them more human. Now, my view on this may change as I read more books from more authors and how they write Astartes, but right now, they are still humans. They just view themselves often as better than regular humans. But they were human once. We get to see this in this beautiful scene at the end of Flight of the Eisenstein with Garro as he's looking out upon Terra and remembering where he grew up, thinking about this 15-summer-old boy possibly looking up to the stars. And you're like, this man was once human. He went through trials to get here. He lives far longer than any human. He's shed many of the things that we humans have to deal with. Like, our inevitable age and death that comes with that, and traded it for inevitable death in battle. Unless, of course, he gets to become a dreadnought, and then it's just sad. It's just even sadder. Because it's like you die twice. I think that's what's so sad about it. They die twice. But Garro, to me, is not too human. Garro is the right amount of human. He's the kind of viewpoint that I, as a reader, especially still early on in the series, need. And I have connected with him, even if it's not the same way that I've connected to Loken. And I think I've pinpointed why. And it's because Loken is much more... He has some autistic tendencies, I think is the best way to say it. He's very staunch, black and white. And that's something I, as an autistic person, relate to very heavily. Loken believes something, the imperial truth. And while he respects others' beliefs, he feels very strongly about his own. He's rooted, grounded in that belief. And Garro does not feel that same staunchness. I'm not saying autistic people can't be swayed by religion. That's obviously not true. But I personally have experienced that sort of black and white thinking that comes with belief, oddly enough, in religion. And I understand that you have to really fall out of those sorts of belief. And there was no impetus by which Loken would have really fallen out of it. Even if he did kind of, nod towards it in the last book in Galaxy in Flames, he didn't make the transformation the way that Garro did. Garro really took the faith upon himself. Where Loken is a square, Garro is a much more, how do I say this? Small scale, socially good person. How do I say this? I don't know, Garro just vibes differently. Garro just has such different vibes. And Loken is so square. Loken is just such a square. But you kind of love the squareness of him. Garro is this free spirit who's ready to take risks in a way that Loken wasn't. Loken took risks because it was backed by his own belief, whereas Garro makes decisions based on emotion. Loken is motivated by those beliefs and his ideals and these deep-seated things, whereas Garro will kind of change as the wind changes based on emotion. And to me, that's a very distinct difference. Loken would never make the same sort of choices that Garro did. I don't know if Loken would have ever made the decision to drop the warp drives. Now, if he needed to for the plot, yeah, they could figure out a way. But he wouldn't have done it in the way that Garro did, right? And I'm not going to continue to put them side by side continuously, but since they are the two main Astartes that we have talked about, I feel like it's good to kind of compare and contrast them, because their journey is very similar. They've both gone through essentially the same things, but they've ended up in very different places, even if they're kind of the same. I don't know, their beliefs have been rattled, but the way they handle it, the way they talk about it, the way they think about it is very different. Garro shows sort of care for the quote-unquote old ways that I don't think I saw as much in Loken, and that probably has to do with Garro being a Terran. His housecarl, Caleb, plays a large role in this book as one of our human characters, as one of the people who is not an Astartes. And Caleb shows the way that the humans in this world are getting swept up in the idea of a god emperor. And it's easy to imagine, right? You're in this big universe with aliens that want to kill you, these great godlike beings all around you, and they're all the sons of this one guy. The idea of the emperor protects is really easy to swallow in the end, I think. I don't know if I particularly connected with Caleb as a character. I thought he was interesting, but I found him by and large to be mostly like just a guy that was around. I don't know how else to say that. He was there as a plot device in the same way that the guys in the Deus Irae were as well. He was meant to show something, but I didn't really connect with him. In the same way, like Cinderman and Mercedes have kind of taken up those roles in these books too. Mercedes and Cinderman too have taken up this slot of like being side characters to what's her name? Keeler's journey to becoming a saint, this living saint. You know, Mercedes herself says as much about becoming... Mercedes is literally painted as being the remembrancer who is detailing Keeler's ascent to sainthood, her canonization. And I mean, if they're happy with it, that's great. I mean, they kind of got swept up into it. I mean, the plot just kind of whoosh, he took them there. It's not like I disliked them in this book, but they didn't do much. There's not much to talk about, you know. It was cool to have them there. The scene where Mercedes like plugs her brain into a computer and then shows Dorn all the stuff that went down was really cool, and I don't know why we didn't start with that. Also, we got to meet Dorn. Dorn seemed really angry. Now, not that his crash out was not completely valid, but for a guy whose entire legion is described as extremely stoic, he was very openly angry and very quick to anger. And I'm not sure if it was just because what Garro said was so intense. I'm guessing that's what it was. The idea of his brother committing heresy really touched a nerve with him, yada, yada, yada. But he was very mad. And I think that was to kind of show how intense that accusation was coming from Garro, and Cruz as well in that moment. Also, loved Cruz in this book. Cruz was amazing. He was the best. I don't know, it was great to get to meet the Imperial Fists. I will say, I don't know the factions all that well. The legions, whatever they're called. So I didn't really know much about the Imperial Fist when they showed up. I was like, yo, it's Dorn. I've heard his name before. I've been doing a great job of staying mostly under the radar when it comes to knowing lore. And it's been really cool just like meeting dudes. I kind of thought it was going to be Sanguinius for some reason, but I was pleasantly surprised when it wasn't, because I think, honestly, Sanguinius would have been really nice to Garro, but like in a way that would have very much changed the plot and probably would have gotten Garro killed once Decius changed on Terra, because I feel like Sanguinius would not have taken the caution that Dorn did, but at this point I'm literally just speculating. Anyway, I liked Dorn. Dorn was cool. Seemed like a nice guy. I totally understood his actions. I know that like Garro was super mad about getting shoved into the Sisters of Silence area, but like it made complete sense. They don't know those guys, and those guys just showed up and said, hey, Horus did a heresy. And of course you're going to be a little suspicious. Made complete sense in my head. And then Decius does his Lord of the Flies act, which, whew. Also, the whole thing about the warp, that was also crazy. The weird thing about this book is that I feel like I remember all of it. It's all in my head, but it's not organized. It feels like a flow in the warp. It is just like completely, it's like running around in my head. And I think that's why I wanted to do more of a stream of consciousness talking about it. And this could backfire. You guys could hate this. I have no idea. But this is just literally my review of the book, uncensored. This is how I feel about it. There's no poetics. Although I will say Grolgor turning into this abomination, the reflection of pestilence, the reflection truly of who he is inside. Delicious, delicious. The way that he embraces it, takes it in, and to see him being pulled back into the warp, his soul being just yoinked into the warp, but not to be described as screaming, not to be described as some scary figure in the way that the others were, like that first dude that we saw on that moon that one time that, you know, hit Horus with a poop knife. The warp seems really crazy. I thought the scenes where they were in the warp were extremely cool and cinematic. In fact, this whole book read as very cinematic. I was like, man, this would make a really, really cool movie. Like, I feel like you might need a little bit more idea of what was going on, but it made me like, I was like, why haven't they made this into a movie? I know they've like tried movies and stuff, but this specifically would go so hard as a movie, dude. This was like crazy cool. I loved it. I loved all those sequences. I was like running through the pages so fast. Cause you know, I wanted them to live. And it seemed like I never thought they were gonna die. You know, I was kind of scared when Dorn showed up, that Dorn was going to get the message and then kill them all. That would have been, I would have taken that. It would have sucked, but I would have taken that. And I was really scared that it was going to happen. But it didn't. It didn't. They're still alive. I've been told that his next book is like number 37. So great. So excited to see Garro in like, I don't know, 32 books or something. Actually more than that if I take a detour. I don't know. I liked it. I just keep saying I liked it, but I did. It was a good book. Oh, I think this is the first time we get to see a chaos god, which is super cool. Because I assume that the presence within the warp is Nurgle being like, I'm gonna tickle you with my corruption. Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee. I do want to touch on James Swallow as a writer. I don't feel like he stood out, which was good and bad. His writing didn't like capture me the way that Counter's writing often did with its kind of flowy poetic prose. And it didn't really capture me with the intensity and general amazingness that Dan Abnett's writing had. But he did have a lot of banger lines, and I do really appreciate that. I feel like James Swallow is a very solid genre writer for science fiction. Is he the best, like, at Warhammer? I don't know. I feel like I would really like to read a non-Warhammer book by him, like some kind of, like, space opera sort of thing. I feel like he'd do very well at that, like a Star Wars novel or something similar. And I think he's written in other IPs before. But he just feels like a very solid genre writer. At the beginning of the book, I'm going to warn you if you haven't read this book and want to read it, he's very verbose. The man uses way too many words when few would do. And it can kind of throw you off, but I promise he really gets into it by the end of it. You kind of ease yourself into it in a lot of ways. Really enjoyed it once I got into it. And he's good at writing action. There wasn't a lot of, like, battlefield stuff, but when it was there, I wasn't as thrown off by it as I was with Counter, because Counter obviously, I don't think, loved writing it, and a lot of his book was just fighting. I don't know. You can tell that James Swallow really enjoyed writing the parts with Keeler and Garro. I don't know exactly how I could tell that. I think because that's where many of the banger lines come from, but there's something about that pairing in particular that I think he really liked in this book, and you can tell because the dynamic between those two is really interesting. I think one of the things that I like the most is that she calls him Nathaniel. Many people call him Nathaniel, but when Keeler does it, she almost always caps a sentence off or starts it. She says, like, save us, Nathaniel, or Nathaniel, please save us. And I feel like other people will often use his name in the middle of paragraphs. Maybe that's not true, but when she says it, I feel a weight to it when I'm reading it. it's almost like talking to a kid as a mentor, saying his full name, not calling him Garro, not calling him Captain, Lord, etc., using his name. The only other person that I know of that does that is Grolgor. So I don't know. I call him Garro. I don't think of him as Nathaniel. I think that's something that someone who I wouldn't say looks down on, but sees him as, like, for Grolgor, it is looks down on, right? But Keeler sees him as someone precious. And I think that comes through in the way she uses his name. I think that names are really powerful, and the way that we use them, almost like punctuation, can be really intense in books and telling a story. Gosh, I can't get over Keeler. I just really like Keeler as a character. She's like all over the place, but I really like her. She is so giving off Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes. But she does finally in this book say, like, do you think I wanted this? Do you think that I wanted to give up being an Imagist for this? No, I just kind of got chosen for it, you know? I think back on who she was and think to who she is now, and she's become a woman of singular purpose. And that's one of the other big ideas in this book, is purpose, right? What is an Astartes without war? A man without purpose. What is Garro in the end? A man seeking purpose, right? As the Great Crusade continued on without the Emperor, it lost its purpose. It lost its momentum. And we see that so clearly in this book, as Garro searches for purpose, as the people of the Imperium all around him in the fleet search for purpose in the God Emperor, right? They're looking for reassurance, in understanding, like, in the tumult, in the intensity. We have the Emperor. They're looking for a rock because they had lost it once the Great Crusade became something moored and manned by a man. Whether people wanted to admit it or not, they all saw the Emperor as a god before. They all saw him as a godlike being at the very least. And suddenly he's gone. He's no longer at the head. This idea of them being abandoned comes up again and again and again. The daddy issues that they're having essentially about the Emperor, even for people who aren't Primarchs. The Astartes feel like they have been abandoned by their own War Master, and he's been replaced by Horus, and Horus is now leading them astray, and there's all these ideas about who is there and who is not, and who they are and who they're going to be, and I don't know, there's a lot going on there. A lot going on there, and I like it. I like that they're exploring the idea of what happens when you lose your driving force, your purpose, right? Loken continued to have his purpose even as the heresy went on, and we see this in Tarvitz as well, the imperial truth. There are many who clung to that, but I think it shows that without the Emperor at the head of the Great Crusade, the imperial truth wasn't enough for many people anymore, Horus included. And so we lose this big driving force in the universe when the Emperor decides to lock himself away to work on the warp web or whatever he does. I don't know, he's working in his garage. And when he does that, they begin to feel lost, abandoned, out in this big, scary universe. And so it's easy to understand how they come to the conclusion that the Emperor must be doing something to protect them still. He has to be. He couldn't have just abandoned them. In fact, he never abandons them. He's always there, in their hearts, with them. I like where this is going. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. It's going good places. Flight of the Eisenstein was a great book. We get some really incredible scenes with Nathaniel Garro in this book. And I want to read one of them to you. This is one of my favorite scenes that I have seen in any of the books so far. And I think it is so, so important to who Garro is, where most of the Imperium is headed, one direction or the other, as they seek that purpose I was talking about. "It's too much," Garro shouted, and sank to his knees, the papers tight in his hand. The horrible taint of this knowledge was a poison that threatened to shrivel his soul. Never in centuries of service had the Astartes felt himself to be so totally, so utterly vulnerable. And in that moment, he understood there was only one to whom he could reach out. "Help me," he cried, offering his entreaty to the darkness. "I am lost." Of their own accord, Garro's hand found the shape of the Aquila, palms open across his chest. "Emperor," he choked, Give me faith. Behind his eyes, Garro felt something break loose inside of him and leap. A sudden release, a flood of energy. It was beyond his ability to describe it. And there in the gloom of the half-lit alcove, he felt the ghost of a voice brush over the edge of his psyche. A crying woman, pale and elfin, strong and delicate all at once, was calling him. The voice from his dream. Save us, Nathaniel. I love this passage. It exemplifies everything about this book. Everyone is lost. Everything is lost right now. And they have two directions to turn, really. Chaos or the Emperor. And the path that you decide now is going to decide your fate forever. And many people, their fate is death or chaos right now. And eventually it'll be death or the Emperor. It's so good, dude! It's so good! I'm so excited to read Fulgrim. Thanks for watching. I've released a tentative order in which I'm going to read the books, and that can be found in the description down below. If you'd love to hear me say more thoughts like this about more stuff all the time, like 25 hours a week, you can come to twitch.tv/GremlinMay. I would love to have you there. I'm kind of pushing for partner right now. I feel good about that push, but we would love to have you. Love to have you no matter what. Lots of Warhammer fans, but keep in mind, I don't always stream Warhammer. Right now it's a lot of Warhammer because that's what I'm super into, but I will eventually switch to variety, so maybe give me a look-see as just a VTuber you might like. I had a great time reading this book, and I hope that if you are following along, you will have a great time reading Fulgrim. As I said before, I might read The Ancient Awaits in between these two, as well as The Last Church. I have some beautiful Sisters of Battle to paint, and I think The Last Church would go well with it. I know it's not exactly a Sisters of Battle story, but, you know, potato, potato, it's the church. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!